coach didn't want facial hair. Sat me down for 3 weeks in a row. And I was probably his best singles player. I'd have served, it was over 110 miles an hour back in the 60s. Sat me down till I learned my lesson. Whatever that lesson was supposed to be, I finally shaved. I wanted to play more than I wanted to wear hair on my face, right? Imagine them trying to do that to you now. Do they really? Here. Yeah, well, that's part of the price for. So, today I only want to talk about Epicurus. Epicurus has got 2 points. One is really weird, and I'll get to that towards the end of the lecture, but I want to bring up the main point that he has. Value theory asks questions central to what's important. What makes a human life go well? What in life is worth pursuing for its own sake? Is happiness the ultimate good? There's 3 theories we'll talk about this week. One is happiness or hedonism. You'll see the word hedonism. You need to know what this means. Happiness, both physical and intellectual, is the only thing valuable for its own sake. For example, if I ask you, how many of you want more happiness rather than less? How many of you want more pain rather than less? Oh, some of us see a value in pain, but for the most part, pleasure is more valuable. I've never met anyone who is so happy, I mean so absolutely happy, coyote happy, that I said, I'm going to call a doctor, make an appointment for you to lay down on the couch and explain why you're so happy. No one should be this happy. We don't do that. But when people aren't happy, we do have a system that we try and provide help for them for. People who are depressed, manic depressed, people who can't seem to get on top of it. So hedonism maximizes pleasure, both intellectual and physical. And hedonism says the only thing desirable in life is pleasure, whether it's physical or whether it's intellectual. And intellectual can be success at what you do, however you define intellectual pleasure. However, there's also something called desire satisfaction theories. Our lives go well to the extent that our desires are satisfied, whether we get what we want. And then objective theories, how well one's life is going depends on more than just one's mental state. There may be more involved to it than just that. Now I'm going to skip over to this. I want to talk about this. Epicurus' letter to Menocius, and you'll see this on your exam, people, so please pay attention. That's why I posted this PowerPoint. Pleasure is freedom from pain and fear. Pleasure is the only thing people seek. Pleasure is the only thing people ought to think. However, Epicurus says about the pleasant life, it involves not indulging in, for him, he says, fancy food, drinking, revelry, or sex, that you can get too much of something, it can have a negative effect. It's produced by sober reasoning, searching out the grounds of every choice and avoidance and banishing those beliefs which through the greatest tumults or catastrophes take possession of the soul. We cannot live pleasantly without living wisely, honorably, and justly. I'm not asking you to agree with these people, just so you understand what they believe in. They're the foundation of how we get to happiness incorporated into our documents. So here's the core of it. For Epicurus, we should seek to be as free from pain and fear as possible. For Epicurus, he thought happiness came if we reduced the concepts or the opportunities for pain and fear to overwhelm us. If we could eliminate pain and fear, what's left over? Well, for him, he thought happiness was. However we define happiness, it's not necessarily a feel-good feeling. It's not necessarily, you know, milli vanilli, don't be sad, be happy. But whatever it is, it's not pain and it's not displeasure. If we eliminate those two, he thought the opportunity to experience pleasure, however we define it, however we desire to experience it, it would be a more open experience for us. On Epicurus' view, each individual ought to maximize his or her own pleasure, which may involve sacrificing some current pleasures for the sake of greater pleasures later on. So the key to Epicurus is that periodically, while this looks really pleasurable, like a second chocolate hot fudge sundae, or a third or a fourth, and it does please you, it may produce more pain in the long run. Or there may be some times when pain needs to be embraced because at the other side of pain is more pleasure than if you didn't embrace the pain. Well, what would an example of that be? Well, it's Saturday, it's August 10th, it's 1996, and in 2 days, my family and I are going to Chicago for a real vacation. Now, have I mentioned I'm a Big Apple kid? I was born in New York City. Yeah, we never went camping. But in northern Michigan, evidently, camping is the thing to do. Do you have any Michigan people here? Camping? Yeah. Camping is taking all the essentials of the kitchen and putting them in a vehicle and going out to the woods and playing like you're woodsmans. And then when you're done, you put them back in the car and you bring them home and clean them, and that's fun. And that was never fun to me. Finally, we're going to Chicago to have a real vacation. And I walk by the bathroom and look at my wife. Now, what had happened is 2 weeks before that, I had a sore throat for 3 days. Now, this is August. In northern Michigan, no one gets sick in August. You get sick in the spring and you get sick in the fall. We have 2 seasons in northern Michigan. We have winter and we have the 4th of July. It is nothing to see 150, 250 inches of snow in northern Michigan. Nothing to see 30, 60, 90 days below freezing. Women find out you do have hair in your nose when you go outside when it's below 0. You go, ooh, what's wrong with my nose? That's called your hair freezing. And snow crunches when it gets way below 0. So 2 weeks before this, I have a sore throat, and then it goes away like that. Sore throats don't go away when you get sick. And this little lump shows up on the side of my neck. I'm walking by the bathroom at 7:30 in the morning, and I look at my wife at the time, and I said, Barbara, what do you think this is? And she looks at it. She says, well, I don't know. When did it show up? And I said, well, 3 days after I had a sore throat 2 weeks ago. She says, why don't you go down and see Dr. Lowe? He's in quick care, but he's my family physician. Best diagnostician I have ever met. People who could diagnose diseases. So I go down and see Gus. He's open at 8. Hey, Gus, how you doing? Fine. We talk about it. What's up? Well, about 2 weeks ago, I got the sore throat for 3 days, and then it went away, and this little lump shows up inside of my neck. Well, you know, doctors, they have you open your mouth, and they put their fingers in your mouth, and they're feeling all around, and he's squeezing this thing. Any pain? No. And no. He said, I want to take a couple X-rays. Takes 2 X-rays. Now, I'm not medically trained, but I've been around medicine for 40 years. So he goes and he puts it up on the big white thing, you know those things? He's got 2 X-rays, puts them up there, and he looks at him, and I'm looking at him. I said, you don't see anything, do you, Doc? He says, no, I want to take another X-ray. Tells his technician he wants her to raise it a factor of 3 lumens. Lumens is a Greek word for illumination, for brightness, so he wants it 3 times brighter. Takes an X-ray, comes back in, throws it up on the screen, him looking at it, and I said, you don't see anything, do you, Doc? He says, no. Now, this guy, as far as I'm concerned, is the best. He's got a great bedside manner, but he is direct. I said, you don't see anything, do you, Gus? And he says, no. He says, honestly, he says, I thought I found a tumor about this big in one of your lungs. I said, tumor? He says, yeah, you have cancer. He says, if it's not in your lungs, it's either here in your brain, and I'm betting it's right here because it moved over here. We call this metastasized in medical language. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to Chicago in 2 weeks for a vacation, and you're telling me I have cancer. We'll talk about ruining your day. He said, we need to get you over to the hospital. We need to get, what was his name? One of the doctors, another guy I knew, to biopsy. So I go over there and he sticks a needle in it. Look, if you ever get cancer, don't let doctors put needles in it, because when cancer gets found out, it goes ballistic. In 3 days, that thing went from being the size of a pin to the size of a golf ball sticking out on the side of my neck. I go to Chicago anyway, because it's not going to make any difference. I come back and they make an appointment with me, Dr. Howie Beck. He's an ENT, ear, nose, and throat. Another friend of mine, my kids play together. I go into his office and I'm waiting for Howie, and Howie comes in his white jacket. And I said, hey, Howie, how you doing? He goes, oh, I wish we were meeting on less unfortunate circumstances. And I said, did you just bury me? I said, I'm breathing, I got a pulse. He said, you're in big trouble. I said, really? Well, just how much trouble am I in? He says, well, let's just say if you had 80% chance, when you get a second node metastasized, they cut your chances in half. And I thought, well, I took calculus in high school. 80 divided by 2 is 40, and I'll add 10% because I'm a good head. 50-50. He said, you have less than 5% chance of living, Larry. Really? I said, well, what do you propose? And he says, well, I want to, now it was, you know where your voice box is? Everybody can see this okay? I have a larger one. Okay, well, right at the top of that is something called the epiglottis. It's a little flipper that keeps food from going down your lungs. And it works just on its own. You don't need to help it out. He says, I want to take the whole, and the tumor was on the base of my tongue, the size of a walnut. I still have a permanent tattoo back there. He said, I want to take the base of your tongue out. I want to take your epiglottis, your voice box, both vocal cords, and both these necks. See this neck muscle here? They took it out on this side. And you'll have a little pencil neck, and we'll get a little machine, and you can talk like this. And I said, well, pardon me, but you're not going to do that to me. He says, what are you talking about? And I said, you're not going to take my plumbing on me. I mean, I make my living this way. I've been doing this for 40 years. I said, I want another opinion. Now, we'll get to that later in class. It's a Supreme Court case called Krzan versus Missouri Health Services, where the patient has rights. I said, who do you recommend? He said, Mayo Clinic. Okay, fine, Mayo Clinic's Rochester, Minnesota. Now, I'm in northern Michigan. I got to fly to Chicago, from Chicago over to Rochester, and then I'll go to the clinic. Well, you always have to wait in Chicago. So they give me my jacket, this big envelope. It's got my name on it. It says, do not open. It's got my name on it. It says, do not open. So I go to Chicago. I got an hour and 45 minutes. So I'm sitting there thinking, I don't even know what kind of cancer they say I have. And here's my jacket, and it's got my name on it. And I don't care that it says, do not open. I opened it. I pulled it out, and it says I had tongue-based squamous cell carcinoma T3N2. Have any medical people in here? It's okay. I had the same look on my face, too. I said, what the heck is a squamous cell anyway? So they have computers there. I got time. I looked it up. Turns out there's 3 kinds of skin cancer. There's basal cancer, which is, we call it stupid cancer. I've had it over here. I've got 2 pieces on my back healing right now. Will not kill you. Then the squamous cell. It will kill you if you don't get it treated. And then there's melanoma, which almost always kills you. I have a friend beat it twice. I have another fellow down in Atlanta right now. I'm not sure he's going to beat it or not. So they tell me I have squamous cell carcinoma and I'm T3N2. What's T3N2? How many stages are there to cancer? 4. And I'm in stage 3 and N2, which is 2 nodes, which makes it just horrible. So I go to Rochester and I see the doctor and he confirms I have tongue-based squamous cell carcinoma. And I said, well, what do you propose to do? And he says, well, something similar to what Dr. Beck wanted to do, only I want to split your jaw in half and peel it back so I can get in there better. Yeah, that's what I said. I want to cut out the base of your tongue, your epiglottis, your voice box, both vocal cords, and take your neck muscles out. He says, when do you want me to make the appointment? I said, you're not going to do that to me. He said, what? I mean, Howie was at least polite when he said, what? This doctor said, what? And I said, you're not taking my plumbing out. He says, well, surely you didn't come here to go to Mexico for some exotic treatment. And I said, what I decide to do, doc, is none of your business. This is my body and my life, and if I decide that I don't want you to do anything, then you're not going to do anything. He got up and stormed out, and I got up. And the wife happened to call and says, you need to go to University of Michigan. They have this special protocol. They call it a SWOG protocol, organ preservation. They're going to give you, anybody ever have or know anyone had cancer? Chemo? They gave me 2 doses, 124 hours in a row. They put a little pump on you. That chemo comes in a package like this, and it's poison. Everybody knows it. You cannot transport that across state lines unless you have federal permission. It's a poison. They put it in a pump, and they put an R port here in my arm, and they ran a Teflon tube to my heart so it would get right into my bloodstream. And for 120 consecutive hours, they pumped me full of what's called 5-FU. 8 hours in, we always started at 3 in the afternoon. 8 hours in, they knocked me out with a pretty big sedative because they were going to add another 8 hours of what's called platinum or cisplat, which just about ruined my kidneys. And they did that twice. And then they burnt my face with what's called 70 rads of radiation. I think I shared this with you the first day. You all have 3 saliva glands. They blew these 2 out, so I only have 1 working for me. And then when it came to surgery, they decided they were just going to take this muscle because this is where it had showed up. And I said, you're not going to touch this one or I'm going to sue you.